45 and then spread. Keep it on.
All right, happy Father's Day, guys. This video is all about nitrous. We're going to talk about my nitrous setup. We're going to talk about nitrous in general. We're going to talk about what you need to run nitrous and basically the ins and outs on why it might be good for you, or you might just be curious. I know a lot of people reached out to me and asked about my nitrous setup. I ran nitrous for a little over a year consistently. I think I was one of the only M cars to run the amount of nitrous that I ran on an everyday basis. Okay, cool. So, what does nitrous do? What is it? Layman's terms, nitrous oxide. You introduce it to the engine, creates a bigger combustion, makes more power, right? Generally, you can do a dry shot or a wet shot. Dry shot is just the nitrous, no fuel. Wet shot, you introduce nitrous and fuel into the combustion chamber, more power. All right, cool. So obviously you need the bottle. There's different size bottles, 10-pound bottles, 5-pound bottles, 15-pound bottles, 20-pound bottles. The bottles, how long it lasts, all depends on the shot of nitrous. The bigger shot of nitrous, the more nitrous you're gonna use. So you might need a setup with one bottle. You might need a setup like I ran. I ran a 2-bottle setup. And you need obviously your bottle holder and lines going to your solenoids and all that stuff. This is going to go over just some of the basic stuff that you need. So like I said, I had two 10-pound bottle setups. So activation, okay. So I had my setup on a toggle switch. So toggle switch, hit the toggle, nitrous is armed, right? That means the system is on and it's ready to shoot nitrous once you activate it. There's a couple different, you can do a switch like that. You can do an LED switch like that. It all depends, right? So activation, there's many different ways to activate it. You can activate it using a fancy controller. Some controllers do RPM activation. Some controllers do RPM and wide open throttle. They have controllers that will do actual boost activation and wide open throttle. It all depends. Mine was just a wide open throttle switch. Once I armed the system, wide open throttle, nitrous starts spraying. So on our cars, you know, there's a switch on our pedal, so we can go full throttle, but there's a little bit more, and then you activate like it's almost like an overrun on the pedal. So the way I had mine was once we hit that switch on our pedal, nitrous activated and started flowing. All right, this is another one. This is like a brand new one from NOS. So that's gonna activate your nitrous, right? Now, for our setup, the way our intake manifold is and the way air is introduced, if you're gonna run just a nitrous setup, you're gonna need to do a direct port. A lot of the boosted guys, they'll run like a 50 shot or a 75 shot, really small shot, and they'll just introduce it into the intake, let it atomize through there, and that's it. Now, if you want to run just nitrous consistently without blowing your stuff up, you need to do a direct port. Direct port is going to be each bank of the engine is going to have its own dedicated nozzle, all right? And I'll show you what the nozzles look like. So this is your typical nitrous nozzle. This is for a wet setup, obviously, right? So you have, try to focus. You have the N for nitrous, obviously, and the F for fuel. And depending on how you have it set up, obviously it'll be orientated down towards the engine. So for us, we would have 8 of these, right? Now, if we go up prior to that, you need a way to basically have the nitrous flowing from the bottle and the fuel from your dedicated fuel system if you're going to use a fuel cell, or if you're gonna, which is basically a tank of its own fuel for the nitrous system, or if you're gonna tap into your stock fuel system. Now there's different ways to do it, right? You can do one of these, which is basically you find a fuel line and you cut two ends and you slide this in, and your fuel runs through here and then out through there, and then that will run to your fuel solenoid, right? Or you can do it the way I had it set up, which is a little different. I took actually the fuel rail, took the fuel rail out, and I welded a fitting on there, and excuse me, we had a fuel line, right? So that's what fed fuel to my system. So we've got the fuel coming in, we've got the nitrous coming in. Now we run to our solenoid. So this is a fuel solenoid, and this is a nitrous solenoid. On my setup, I actually had two nitrous outlet solenoids, one fuel, one nitrous. I think I sold that. But anyway, when you hit this activation switch, when you go full throttle, it's going to send a signal to open these solenoids. So your fuel and your nitrous starts flowing, right? Now, after that, you're going to need a way for them to meet before it goes through, basically before it goes through that nozzle. Now, you can set it up to where you have a whole bunch of wires, or excuse me, a whole bunch of lines, and you just branch it off, branch it off, branch it off. I've seen that before in very rare setups, but usually a nitrous system is going to use what's called a distribution block. Distribution block is going to basically distribute your nitrous and your fuel to the nozzles. Now, there's blocks that I've seen like that. There's customizable ones like this one right here from Nitrous Outlet. So this comes as a solid piece of metal, right, that you modify yourself. So this one, well, how we had is we had one side for nitrous on all the holes and one side for fuel. And there's our fittings. Let me focus the camera. There's our fittings. So that will be our inlet for our nitrous and our fuel. So one solenoid will be hooked up to one end and one the other. And now my setup was completely custom, so we have all these stainless steel custom made lines for all the nitrous in our fuel. So anyway, so once that is set up, there'll be fittings on each of these, and they'll come out, and then from there it basically just goes to this right here, because it's already mixed in here. And then that goes through the engine, makes power, big bang, more horsepower. It's pretty simple. Now there's other stuff that I didn't include in here. There's a heater, because what you want is you want to heat up the nitrous bottle before you spray it. So it'll be like it's like a blanket heater. It's Velcroed. You strap it on there. You hook it up to another switch, and basically the heater will come on, and obviously you'll have a nitrous pressure gauge, which will tell you the pressure, because as you heat it up, temperature, pressure, right, increase. Now, I ran mine, once I hit 1,000 PSI, that's when I started spraying, 1,000, 1,200. And it was perfect. You want that because you want that atomization, and you want that nitrous to feed through, right? Now there's other things that guys include. You can include a purge, which basically you hit a button, and I'm sure you guys have seen it at racetracks or car shows. Guy hits a button, nitrous comes out either from his hood or the side or whatever. All that does is that clears the line, and that pressurizes it to make sure that nitrous is all the way up to these, pretty much. It makes sure that nitrous is all the way here and the whole line is pressurized, so when you get that hit, there's no delay in nitrous. Some guys that don't want people to know that they run nitrous won't be purging, so that's up to you. Let me see some other stuff that I might have not included. I think that's it. I mean, nitrous is great, man. You just have to know how to use it, have a good setup. Always activate it past 3,000 RPM. You want that engine to be under load, because if you activate it under low RPM, you're gonna blow something, right? The torque it creates is crazy, and that hit is what hurts your rods. What else? Oh, so tuning. So there's a couple different ways. If you find a dedicated tuner that basically will tune your car to nitrous, basically what they'll do is they'll pull a little timing out of it so you can safely run nitrous. That's how I had it on my car. They just ran they pulled a little tuning. I ran a little fat, and now a little fat means you have a little more fuel in it. I ran a little bit richer, which is fine. Another thing that I had on my setup is I ran methanol injection, water meth, with my nitrous. Now, why am I going to do that? Okay, so my temps, my intake temps are way lower, and then what it does also, it cools the linings of your combustion chamber, and it slows that combustion down also. So that's going to let you make more power, and it increases octane, right? So that's a plus. And then since I live in Florida, I either ran it on 93, or if I had a car I was going to run, which I wasn't too sure if I was going to win or not, it was a fast car, what I would do also is I'd probably run a little race gas in it, whether if it's Sunoco race fuel or any of the other ones, or Ignite, but it's always going to be an unleaded race gas. I think that's it. Yeah. So I'm gonna cut to a video of the setup. I'm gonna cut to a video of a run I did on nitrous, 175 wet shot or direct port wet with the meth against a gutted, close to 600 wheel horsepower hatch Civic, fast car. A couple runs on that, and that's it, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Father's Day.
Ready.
Hey, sorry guys, I missed a couple things. Yeah, so when I said earlier bank, obviously I meant cylinder, whatever. So this, very key. So this is a nitrous jet. Some guys call it pills, but this is a nitrous jet. This is gonna tell you how much nitrous or fuel is gonna flow out of this nozzle, right? Now, every company and every brand has different flow rates for their pills or their jets, whatever you want to call it, you have to look that up, because there will be a dedicated number for fuel and a dedicated number for nitrous, and that number together is going to tell you basically your horsepower number or the shot number that you get, right? And it all changes on what type of nitrous setup. So if you have, say, a single throttle body car and you do one nitrous nozzle, and if you say, we'll talk just wet shots, and say you do a single nozzle, single throttle body, 150 shot, right? There's going to be a number for the fuel, and there's going to be a number for the nitrous, for the jet. So you have to look that up. Now, depending on if you do a direct port and how many cylinders, that number is typically going to go down, because you have to kind of divide that by how many cylinders, right? So you might want to do a 150 shot on either a 4-cylinder or 6-cylinder or a V8, right? So you need to divide that 150 by how many cylinders you have. This is for direct port, how many cylinders you have, and that will tell you how much of a shot each nozzle needs to do, right? So just keep that in mind. I forgot to include that. If I forgot to include anything else, please hit me up in the comments. Thanks.